All right, so back again for another Other Opinion Deep Dive. And today we're going to be looking at something pretty interesting, pretty spicy, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's been making the rounds online.
Definitely, it's gotten a lot of people fired up. And it all centers around this Indian comedian, Samay Raina, and his online talent show, India's Got Latent, IGL for short.
Right, IGL, yeah.
And for those maybe not super familiar with it, think like classic Got Talent shows, but like way more unfiltered, way more roasts, way more, I don't know, just kind of like in-your-face humor.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the controversy comes in. Like, how far is too far? And is it all just a joke, or was it cross a line?
For sure, for sure. And that's what we're going to dig into today, like what actually went down, what people are saying about it, and, what it might tell us about comedy, censorship, all that good stuff.
Yeah, the whole landscape of online content these days. It's a wild world out there.
It really is. So first things first, I guess, who is Samay Raina? Like, for those who maybe aren't as plugged into the Indian comedy scene, what's his deal?
So he's a pretty interesting guy, actually. He kind of blew up. I mean, he was already doing stand-up, had a YouTube channel, but then during the pandemic, he started streaming chess online.
Really?
Yeah, like with other comedians, with chess masters. It was this whole,
That's
yeah, it
awesome.
was really unexpected and it really took off. But before all that, he actually won Comic Stan, which is like this huge stand-up competition in India.
Yeah, Comic Stan, that's a big deal.
Yeah, so he's definitely got talent. Like, he's funny, he's quick on his feet, and he's built up this huge following, millions of subscribers on YouTube, estimated net worth like $16–17 million.
Wow. Okay, so not just like internet famous, like legit successful.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. So, he was doing his thing, everything was going great, and then comes India's Got Latent and things kind of take a turn.
All right, so let's get into it. What exactly happened? What was the big bang moment that started this whole controversy?
So it all went down during an episode with guest judge Ranveer Allahbadia, the YouTuber known as Beer Biceps. And he asks this contestant this question, and it's really explicit. Like, I don't even think we should repeat it here. It was that bad.
Yeah, I saw some clips floating around online, and it's definitely out there.
Yeah, and it immediately sparked this huge backlash. Like, people were furious, accusing the show, Ranveer, everyone involved of promoting obscenity.
Wow.
Yeah, it was intense. And it wasn't just like online outrage. Like, people filed a police complaint.
Whoa, okay, so like actual legal ramifications.
Yeah, it got serious fast, and some people were even calling for the government to ban the entire show.
That's crazy. So what happened next? Like, how did Samay respond to all of this?
Well, Ranveer put out a public apology, acknowledging that he made a mistake, talking about the importance of content responsibility. But for a lot of people, it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, once something's out there online, it's out there, An apology can only do so much.
Exactly. And it's interesting because you had all these different reactions from other comedians, from celebrities, like everyone had an opinion.
Right. It really became this whole conversation.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to see where people landed. Like, you had Bharti Singh, another big comedian, coming to Samay's defense. She was basically saying, look, he's talented, the show style is raw, it's unfiltered, but that's the point. Viewers can choose to watch or not.
So kind of like a you don't like it, don't watch it kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But even she admitted later that she felt a bit embarrassed by some of the jokes, even surprised by how much her own husband, Harsh, was getting into it.
Aha, that's hilarious. So even someone who's defending the show is like, okay, maybe they went a little too far.
Right. It's like, even within the comedy community, there's this line, and it's not always clear where it is.
Yeah, it makes you think, huh? Makes you think, if you're digging this conversation, digging these different opinions, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to The Other Opinion for more thought-provoking content. And tell a friend, tell everyone, let's get this conversation going.
For sure, the more the merrier.
Exactly. So you were saying other people had different opinions. What were some of the other, big reactions that stood out to you?
Well, you had Rakhi Sawant, who's always, outspoken. She went in a totally different direction.
Oh, I bet.
She was basically calling out what she saw as hypocrisy, like, why are people suddenly so outraged now? She brought up other Bollywood scandals, like with Udit Narayan, the singer, who's had his fair share of controversies.
Yeah, I remember that.
And her point was, everyone's got skeletons in their closet. Why are we picking on Samay and Ranveer?
That's interesting. It's like, is it really about the content or is it about who the target is?
Right, that's the question, isn't it?
Definitely makes you think. What about Samay? Like, how did he handle all of this being right at the center of the storm?
So he actually ended up deleting all the India's Got Latent videos from his channel. He said it just became too much to handle and that his intention was always to entertain, to make people laugh.
Yeah, I can imagine the pressure must have been immense.
Oh, absolutely. He also said he'd fully cooperate with the authorities, which is huge. Like, he's potentially losing millions in revenue by deleting those videos.
Wow, that's a big statement. Like, this isn't just some online drama. This has real-world consequences.
Yeah, and it raises all these questions about, where do we draw the line, what's funny, what's offensive, especially in the digital age where things can blow up so fast.
It's a minefield out there for sure, and it feels like the rules are constantly changing. Makes you wonder what this means for the future of comedy, for online content in general.
It's definitely a conversation worth having. So, what do you think? Have you formed an opinion yet? Let us know in the comments what your other opinion is on this.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a minefield. Trying to figure out what's okay and what's not, especially with comedy, because it's so subjective.
Exactly, exactly. What one person finds hilarious, another might find totally offensive. In this case with Samay, with Ranveer, it really highlights that, how do we even define what's acceptable humor?
Right, and especially in a place like India where you have so many different cultures, so many different perspectives, it's like, whose standards do we use?
It's tough. It's really tough. And then you throw in this whole cancel culture debate. Was this a cancel-worthy offense? Did Samay deserve to have his whole show taken down?
That's the big question, right? It's like, on the one hand, people should be held accountable for what they say, especially when it's something that can cause harm.
Right.
But on the other hand, you don't want to stifle creativity, you know? Comedy's supposed to push boundaries. It's supposed to make us think.
It is. It is. And that's where it gets tricky because where's the line? When does pushing a boundary become crossing a line?
Yeah, and then you have platforms like YouTube where this all played out. They're stuck in the middle.
Totally. They're trying to balance freedom of expression with, keeping things appropriate, keeping advertisers happy. It's a tough job.
It really is. They're getting pressure from all sides. And I think this whole situation with Samay and Ranveer just shows how quickly things can escalate online.
Oh, yeah.
Like, 1 minute you're making jokes, the next minute you're facing legal action, you're losing your career. It's intense.
It is. It is. It's a reminder that words have power, especially online, where things can go viral so fast.
Absolutely. And for content creators, especially those who are just starting out, it's like, how do you navigate that? Do you have to be constantly self-censoring, afraid to take risks?
It's a valid concern, and it could definitely have a chilling effect on creativity. If people are too afraid to experiment, to push boundaries, then what happens to comedy?
Right, right. It becomes safe. It becomes boring.
Exactly. So, this incident with Samay, it forces us to ask some tough questions, like, what's the future of comedy? How do we balance freedom of expression with responsibility?
Yeah, it's a conversation we need to be having. And if you're finding this discussion interesting, make sure to hit that like button. Share this episode with your friends. Let's get more people talking about this.
For sure, for sure. The more perspectives, the better.
Absolutely. And while you're at it, subscribe to The Other Opinion so you don't miss out on any of our future deep dives. We're all about exploring these complex issues, getting those different viewpoints out there.
Exactly. Keep those conversations going.
All right, so just to kind of recap what we've covered so far, we started by talking about Samay Raina, his background, how he built his career. Then we got into the whole India's Got Latent controversy, that question that sparked it all, the public outcry, the legal stuff.
Right, and we looked at the different reactions from the comedy community, from Bharti Singh defending Samay to Rakhi Sawant calling out hypocrisy, even Ali Goni standing up for his friend.
It's been a lot to unpack, but now we want to hear from you, the listeners. What are your thoughts on all of this? Where do you draw the line between funny and offensive? How do we navigate this whole online content world?
Yeah, let's have a real conversation about it. Hit us up in the comments. Tell us what your other opinion is.
It feels like we're at this point now, not just in India, but globally, where we're trying to figure out, okay, what are the rules when it comes to comedy, especially online? It's not as straightforward as it used to be.
No, not at all. And this whole thing with Samay, with Ranveer, it's like a wake-up call for everyone involved.
Yeah, like for comedians, for YouTubers, for the audience even.
For the platforms, for everyone.
So where do we even go from here? What do we do?
Well, I think, honestly, it starts with these conversations, like what we're doing right now, being willing to listen to each other, even if we disagree, and remembering that humor, yeah, it's powerful, but it can also hurt.
Right, it's about finding that balance, pushing boundaries, but also being aware of how your words might affect other people.
Exactly, exactly. It's about being responsible.
Yeah, responsible with our humor, both when we're making it and when we're watching it.
I think that's key.
And before we wrap up, I just want to say to all the listeners out there, think for yourselves. Do your own research, form your own opinions. Don't just blindly follow the crowd.
Couldn't agree more. Critical thinking is so important, especially these days.
Absolutely. So if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe to The Other Opinion for more content like this. We're always trying to get those different perspectives out there.
For sure. And tell your friends, share it around. Let's keep this conversation going.
Yeah, the more the merrier, right? And one last thing before we go, full transparency. This whole deep dive, it was actually generated using AI.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, so while we do our best to make sure everything's accurate, always a good idea to double check, do your own digging.
That's true. That's true. Can't be too careful these days.
Exactly. So until next time, keep those minds open, keep those conversations going, and keep those other opinions coming.
Love it. See y'all next time.
27 CIM